Everybody, welcome to episode 8 of the Clu and Clueless podcast, the only tech podcast on the internet where you get tech from two perspectives. My name is Robert, I run the Bite Size Clue channel here on YouTube, and I love absolutely everything tech. But what would a podcast be without a wonderful co-host? And that is where Zoe comes in. Say hello, Zoe.
Hello.
So this week we've got a pretty jam-packed week. A lot has happened this week, hasn't it?
Yeah, not that I understand most of it.
What's the difference to usual? So this week
Exactly.
we're talking a little bit about Apple. Apple have released a lot of new stuff. We had a lot of news coming out of the Mobile World Congress. Xbox 360 games, they've been decompiled now. You don't own anything anymore. That'll be an interesting one, and I'm going to leave people in suspense there. Meta have been messing people around with their OpenXR plugins. And Apple's taking some legal action against the UK government as well.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
There you go. Right, let's run the intro and let's get right into this episode. All right, so I feel like we're 8 weeks in. How are you doing, Zoe? Yeah, you've had a good day, good week. She's just giving me a thumbs up, forgetting that this is an audio podcast.
That sums up
Yeah.
my week.
Okay. I mean, fair enough. Well, it's been a pretty exciting week. I've got to say, we've got a lot to talk about. So should we jump straight into the first topic?
Yeah.
And that is Apple announcing a lot of new products. Let's jump over to the apple.com website. If my screen capture is deciding that it wants to play ball. And we can take a look at all of the new stuff that Apple announced.
Is that all this stuff here?
Yes. So there actually wasn't an event for this one. Usually they do the whole big events, don't they? Where they
Normally,
didn't.
because you watch them.
Yes, they didn't do that this time. We got a lot of new products. Nothing particularly groundbreaking. It's mainly just chip refreshes. So first things first is we've got the new MacBook Airs.
What do you mean by chip refreshing?
So the CPU and GPU in them are better than they were last time.
Okay.
Basically, they've just got the newest and fastest chips in them. So we'll start off with the MacBook Air. The main difference here is you get a new sky blue colour, which I actually quite like. I think this is a nice colourway. It's subtle, and it's nicer than the silvers and the greys that they normally do.
Is it similar to my phone?
Let me have a look. Yes. Yes, it is very similar to your phone. You've got the 15 Plus in the sky blue. Yes, it's a similar sort of colour.
Okay.
It comes with the M4 chip, which is the latest and greatest chip that you can get in MacBooks.
Remind me again what that does.
So that's like the CPU and the GPU. That's the thing that gives the computer all of its power. It's the brain.
So it's basically a power bank.
No, it's the brain of the computer. It's the thing that does all the computing.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So we'll move on. It's the thing that does all the computing.
Okay.
A few interesting things to point out here is this one actually came down in price. This is the first time in a while that Apple has released something and it's gone down in price. Usually it's the same or it goes up. They've actually reduced the price.
Down in price?
We're not entirely sure. There's a few speculations as to why, but it's now $100 or dollars and pounds cheaper than the previous model.
Okay.
We think this is probably because they are no longer producing these in China. So there's no longer a China tax on them. Recently, since Trump came into administration, there's been a lot of new taxes on Chinese products. So we think these are probably being made in Singapore or somewhere like that, Taiwan. So they're not paying the same
I thought they were
taxes.
made in America.
They're designed in America. They were being made in China up until very recently.
Oh, okay.
They potentially are now being made in India or Taiwan, I believe.
Shows how much I know.
Alongside that, we also got the new iPad Air. iPad Airs now have an M3 chips in them, so they are one generation behind the M4. I've got an iPad Air at the moment. It's the M1 version. Love it. Don't really see the point in the M chips within an iPad. It's like having a Lamborghini, but actually sticking a mini engine in it, because the software doesn't do enough, I don't think, to warrant the M chips, the M series chips. But again, nice thing here is up until this point, iPads have come in 64 gigabytes of storage as a base variant.
Mm-hmm.
And for a very long time, I and many, many other people have simply said that 64 gigabytes is not enough storage.
Yep.
It fills up far too quickly.
Yeah.
Finally, with this upgrade on the iPad Air, we have more storage as the base. 128 gigabytes as base storage, which is nice. And it's the same price. So always, we like to see it. We like to see it. What else did they announce? A new standard iPad as well. So they have the Air models and they have the normal, boring old iPads. These are just as cheap as they usually
That's
are.
not come up on mine.
No, you have to go searching for those. Oh yeah, I found them.
Not I found them.
Yep, $329. Comes with the A16 Bionic chip. Pretty standard stuff. I think if I was buying an iPad now, I probably would just get the standard iPad, this one. The Air model is nice, but as I say, the M chips, don't really see a point in them outside of Apple Intelligence. And I think we all know how I feel about Apple Intelligence. If I were to be buying an iPad for you, ignore the Apple Card, that's an America only thing. If I was to be buying an iPad for you, I'd be looking at this one. Because
really?
the Mini is much more expensive than this model.
Why? Why? How?
Yeah, I don't
work?
really understand that either. So it's $329 for the standard iPad. The Minis start from $499.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a lot. That's even more than my old one that I had.
Yeah, I mean, $329, I think it's a good price. There's nothing really of note to talk about with the standard iPad. The biggest upgrades that we saw this week, though, were with something called the Mac Studio. This is this guy. It's the big, beefy desktop computer. So I have the Mac Mini.
The thing that you've got.
Yeah, I've got the Mini, which is mini, half the height. This is much taller.
I think it's already full.
Yeah. This is much taller and comes with an absolutely ridiculous amount of power and RAM. So, base model is starting at £2,099. Comes with 14 CPU cores, 32 GPU cores, and a 16-core neural engine. By default, 36 gig of RAM, which is nice. My current machine has 24 gig, I think, of RAM. A 512 gigabytes SSD as standard.
Sorry, I'm still shocked at the price.
You wait, it gets better.
Oh god.
If you would like the that's with the M4 Max chip. If you would like the M3 Ultra chip, you're looking at 28 CPU cores, 60 GPU cores, and 32 core neural networks.
Still don't know what any of those are.
Yep. 96 gig of RAM by default. 1 terabyte of storage by default. That starts at £4,200. The thing that's wild about this guy, though, is when you start to customise it. Because for an additional £1,500, you can get yourself the M3 Ultra chip with a few more CPU cores, GPU cores, and neural network cores. You could also then take a look at maybe giving it a little bit more RAM. So the RAM is like standard SSD memory, but it's where applications hold all of their data. It's when it needs to grab it really quickly. It can go up to 0.5 terabyte of RAM, which is absolute madness. That's an extra £4,000. So
Out of
storage.
curiosity, what's the most expensive one you can possibly get?
That's what we're working towards. Bear with me. Storage
we're
by
already
default.
on £8,000.
No, we're not. We're at 9.7.
Okay, whatever.
1 terabyte by default. If you wanted to go with the highest storage option possible, which you probably would, 16 terabytes, that's going to cost you an additional £4,600. Let's
13.
Yeah, let's guess that we probably don't need Final Cut. We don't need Logic. We've got all the software. That is coming to £14,300.
Who would need that?
It isn't. Huh? Who would need that?
Who would need that?
This this is actually a really good question. Who would need half a terabyte of RAM, and who would need this much storage? I actually think the people who need this the most are going to be people who are running large language models and AI processing locally, because these kinds of models require a lot of RAM. So having 512 gig of that stuff, it's going to be good. It's going to be great. I would.
Is my response to that.
If I had a spare 15 grand, I probably would get a Mac Studio completely specced out. Now, the interesting thing with the Mac Studio, the interesting thing with the Mac Studio being specced out like that is when
That's
you look.
Almost the same amount as your Office.
I know. When you look at the Mac Pro, which has been transformed by Apple Silicon, the Mac Pro is about the same price. Starts from £7,200. If you were to spec out a completely top of the range one, it's only £11,000. It's only £12,000.
Oh, I'm so glad
for a top of the range Mac Pro, which makes me wonder.
Only 12 grand. Only 12 grand, he says.
Which makes me think that they're getting rid of the Mac Studio, the Mac Pro. It's just not going to be around anymore, and it's going to have been replaced by the Mac Studio, which is the much smaller and more elegant solution. So yeah, that's Apple's news. Apple released a lot of new stuff. They've had a busy couple of weeks, actually, haven't they? They released the 16E, which, if you're interested in finding out about, I've just done a full video on the channel.
And by the looks of it, you're not impressed?
I'm not, no, because I've become so accustomed to all of the other features that are a part of the iPhone family. If someone like my dad, who I've actually given the phone to now, it's his phone now, he was on an 11, 12 mini, so he's used to not having a U1 chip. He's used to not having loads of cameras on the back. He's used to not having MagSafe charging. For him, it just sort of makes sense. He wants a phone that's going to last for years and years and years. 16E has 7 years worth of software updates, and it has everything that he needs. So, and it saves him £100 on buying the 16 standard, the basic 16 model.
Yeah.
So I think it has its audience, but it is an incredibly niche audience. Only 12,000, says Connor. Yes, only 12,000. Considering the Mac Studio is 14,000 for it to be fully specced out, 12,000 is a bit of a bargain.
It's still nearly the same price as your Office.
It was the same price as the Office. But these kinds of machines are for I don't know. These kinds of machines are for studios. They are for the Mac Studio. They're for people who are creatives who use these for their work. It's not for the end user.
12 grand.
14 grand if you want the studio. But yes, should we move on and talk
please.
a little bit about Mobile World Congress? So that was an event that happened this week in Barcelona. It was a big event where a lot of mobile phone manufacturers and other tech companies come together to show off their latest products. There were 2 major products that caught my eye, both for different reasons, but in the same sort of vein. They are smartphones. They are smartphones that are basically, by this point, just cameras. First one is by a company called Realme. And they have this large interchangeable lens system which basically just snaps onto the phone. This is getting very, very close to how a DSLR or a mirrorless camera would be, right?
Okay, that image is not what my brain was thinking it was. My God.
If I were to ask, is it PG enough to be?
It looked like first glance, a quick glance made me think it was a car. I'm more tired than I think.
Yeah, I don't see it. Sorry.
I'm more tired than I think.
This is the Realme version of basically a camera phone which is more camera than it is phone by this point.
It bloody looks it.
These are very, very concept phones, so there's no pricing. These aren't going to be sold. These are just Realme and Xiaomi, which we'll talk about later, showing off what they think they can do.
Right.
So by default, you can buy 2 separate lenses for the Realme, or they produced 2 separate lenses that are literally just screw on like a DSLR and a mirrorless cameras do. My biggest gripe with the idea is the sensor that's on here. So normally, the larger the sensor, the more light it captures, the better pictures it takes, right? So for this kind of mirrorless DSLR, you'd be looking to be close to a 1-inch sensor to get really good images out of it. This is still using a mobile phone sensor. It's a sensor that's maybe 1/1/3, if not smaller. So slapping a lens on it really isn't going to do much for the overall camera quality.
No. The thing that's bothering me, the weight distribution. It looks really weird.
I hadn't even thought of that, but you're right. You've got an incredibly thin phone here with this big fat of lens on the front of it. That's going to be awful for weight distribution. Because these are probably going to be quite heavy lenses.
Yeah. They look like proper duty lenses that you get on proper DSLR cameras.
They're specifically built
and they are heavy itself, let alone attached to a phone.
Yes, to a supposedly quite light phone.
That's like that, but with...
That, honestly, yeah. It's you can see why it's a concept. Definitely.
But yeah, What? Why did that just tell me about standby?
I don't know. What it does do though, is allows you to get a much shallower depth of field, because you can physically change your exposure, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a physical lens, you can give it more or less light, which you can't do with your phone cameras.
No.
So you get much nicer bokeh effects and blurring. That's really the only advantage I see here in this sort of lens setup, until we start putting 1-inch sensors on it.
Just use a bloody DSLR
camera. This also brings me to my next question for you, Zoe. At what point do you just say, I'm just going to buy a camera? At this point, right? Yeah.
Before that point.
Yeah. Who is this aimed at? Who, other than being a really cool concept piece, if this went for standard sale, who would buy it?
For nuts that want to try it, or to see if it even works.
If you're a photographer nut, you wouldn't though, because that sensor's too small to really do anything.
But would you get it just to test it and then return it? Would it?
Maybe.
When it ultimately
fails. Yeah. So that is. Sorry, go on.
Do you have this link?
Yes, it's in the chat. Let me switch over to the standard scene, and I will text it to you.
Thank you.
You can take a look.
Text it to me, and I will message it to Neil.
Yeah. So this is the Realme one. Let me send that there. There is also a different version that we're going to talk about in a second from Xiaomi, which I think goes in a better, which I think is a better option for most people. If we scroll down a little bit, we can see that sensor. So the sensor is larger, perhaps, than most big beefy cameras. I don't think it actually says anywhere the size of the sensor, but you can see the larger sensor in the middle there. Can you see that? So you can see here, the lens, the actual lens is bigger than you would get on a standard camera. And I admit, it looks good. It looks like a nice piece. So by default, they've got a 73mm portrait lens and a 234mm telephoto lens. So I suppose that's also another advantage to this kind of setup, right? You're going to get much better zoom than you would from a standard phone camera.
I feel like my dad would go one of two ways.
Mm-hmm.
Either he would get it just to try it out to see if it actually works, or two, he would think it's absolutely stupid.
Yes.
And he worked in photography, he worked at Jessup, he had like 20 different cameras.
I think...
I feel like it would go one of two ways. Either he would get it just to try it and see if it actually worked, or he would think it was an absolutely stupid idea.
Perhaps if you're doing amateur photography, you might want something like this, because then you're not having to carry around a big camera and your phone. But that's kind of a niche thing, isn't it? But yeah, they weren't the only company to show off big cameras in phones. We also saw Xiaomi doing very, very similar. I actually prefer Xiaomi's approach though. So their phone is...
Well, that looks better.
This guy here, yeah. So this one is a separate lens module that you can buy separate to the phone. And it's got little pogo pins there and there, which just snap on to the back of the phone with magnets, like MagSafe. But all of the actual camera, lens and computing is in this module here. It has a larger sensor than the Realme one, so you're getting better photos out of it as well.
Okay.
And because you've got these pogo pins, it means that it's not just for lenses, right?
You could this one as well.
It's on the same link.
Okay, that's fine.
It's not just for these lenses. You could create modules for super fast SSD storage, or realistically any kind of data transfer.
This looks like a better weight distribution.
It's a smaller lens.
Exactly.
It's a much
smaller lens.
I think
that looks like it would work better.
Yeah, the one here is their telephoto lens. So they also did have the 73mm.
Do you remember the really when you could get the really small cameras, not the professional ones, but like the ones that you'd get for like family holidays?
Yeah.
It looks like one of those, just a bigger lens.
Yes, Samsung actually did one of those many, many years ago. They did a...
It just looks like one of those. That's what it's reminding me of, because I had a blue version.
I think it was called was it called the Samsung Galaxy camera? Yeah. So
it looks like one of those.
Samsung actually made this. This was an actual phone that you could buy that had a camera lens that came out the back.
Yeah.
It was... I did sort of want one of those when they were out initially. But with this one, of the two, I would be choosing the Xiaomi one here.
Yeah.
Because I think the execution is a lot better than Realme's execution of it. Would you buy one? Would you buy one of these, Zoe? Would you want to at least try out a camera like that?
I would want to try one out.
Yeah. I mean, there's no pricing on them.
I would just want to get one just to try it out.
There's no pricing on them, so I dread to think how much those things would actually cost. I think you'd be verging on the $2,000 mark.
Probably.
Or $1,500.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And then you'd also have to buy all the lenses on top again, and
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I'd want to try one, but whether I could afford it or not is another question.
Although, saying that, there's a film coming out this year called 28 Years Later.
Yeah.
From the guys who did 28 Weeks and 28 Days Later, the zombie flicks. That film is shot completely on iPhone.
Is it?
Yeah, so it's actually using my phone, the 15 Pro Max, or the 15 Pro and Pro Max. They rigged up iPhones to have these absolutely enormous, like proper cinema lenses on them. But in terms of actual base optics, it was all shot on iPhone.
Huh.
Which does say something for the state of phone cameras nowadays, I think. Imagine what you could do, though, if you had something like the Realme one. There we have it. Should we move swiftly on to a little bit of news about some hacking that has been happening recently?
More hacking?
Oh no, this is good hacking. We like this kind of hacking.
Okay. Why do we like this kind of hacking?
Because it means cool stuff.
Oh,
so this week, a group of hackers released a port of a game called Sonic Unleashed, which was an Xbox 360 game about Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. And it was a PC port of the 360 game. That wasn't really the interesting bit here. The interesting bit here was they actually released the decompiler code that takes the disk files of Xbox 360 games, decompiles them into their base assets, so all of the code, all of the models, music, everything.
Yeah.
And then recompiles it again to run on Windows PCs.
Oh, I thought that was the honest.
Yeah, to run on Windows PCs. The Xbox 360's architecture and the Xbox One's architecture is very, very similar to a PC. It's basically just a PC with a custom operating system on top that's Xbox branded, right? So decompiling and recompiling it is slightly less trivial than doing it, slightly more trivial than doing it for the PlayStation. What this means, though, is you can take basically any Xbox 360 game that you remember from back in the day and replay it again now on the PC. And you can hack it. You can change the code, and you can, because it's all running natively, right? So you can go in and you can mess with the code. You can change the models out. You can do all of this kind of stuff that's never been able to be done before, just because of this decompile recompile. The idea of this isn't something new. It's been going for years and years now. The initial game that they used here was Sonic Unleashed, released 16 years ago in November 2008. What I think is also interesting about this is it means that you can now play all of these games without having to emulate them. What?
Nothing.
What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
What?
Nothing.
Go on.
Nothing.
What?
Nothing. Carry on.
God. I'm not even gonna ask. So yeah,
don't.
It means you don't have to emulate them.
Okay.
Which means that you're not going to have the performance hit that comes with game emulation. Better frame rates. You'll be able to make it run at higher resolutions and such. They have mentioned here that you potentially could do this for other Xbox consoles as well. Though, to be honest with you, I'd probably stick to the 360.
I felt that.
And it means that we can play games, that I can replay games from my childhood that I absolutely adored, like Blue Dragon and all the skate games. I can replay those. I still do, but I can play them on PC.
What games?
Skate.
Okay, my hearing's getting worse.
Yeah, Blue Dragon was a great game. Blue Dragon was a, I think a JRPG that me and my dad played a lot. Good game, really good game. So yeah, interesting stuff that we can now decompile and completely recompile Xbox 360 games natively to run on PC. It means that playing these games is going to be so much easier. So yes, shall we move on and talk a little bit more about games?
Okay.
Because this week a new game has released, hasn't it, Zoe? That I have been chewing your ear off about, that we absolutely need to play.
Yeah.
And that I'm very excited for.
Yeah.
It is a game called Split Fiction. Split Fiction is a game from the creators of other cooperative games like It Takes Two and A Way Out and Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. These are couch co-op games that are done so beautifully.
I will take your word for it.
You've enjoyed our time with It Takes Two. I know you get frustrated with it occasionally. But you have enjoyed our time with It Takes Two. A very, very fun platforming game. Split Fiction is in the same sort of vein, but takes everything to the absolute extreme. It's a game about two women, one called Zoe, can't remember the other girl's name, both writers. One is a fiction writer in terms of sci-fi, and one is a fantasy writer. They go and see a company who basically just sucks their brains and all the ideas and writes the books from their brains. And they get sucked into these adventures and they have to work together to escape them. So half of the levels are fantasy based, half the levels are sci-fi based, but each level plays completely differently to the last. So one might be a third-person action adventure, one might be a 2D platforming side-scroller, one might be a bullet hell, one might be... It basically rides every single game genre that you can think of. There's also a racing level and a level where you are a sausage.
It's just going to be a game that's going to frustrate the hell out of me.
Probably, but there is so much there. I think you're going to love at least some of it.
Okay.
I genuinely do think you're going to love at least some of it.
Okay.
The game is interesting and noteworthy because It Takes Two, when it released, won Game of the Year that year. Split Fiction has come out a couple of days ago and is the best reviewed game of 2025 so far. It's basically reached 9s and 10s across the board, with people calling it masterpieces.
Okay.
It's going to be difficult for it to win Game of the Year this year because of one other game that's releasing this year.
Oh, God.
Said to be releasing this year.
What?
GTA 6.
Oh, yeah.
GTA 6 is meant to be Q4 of this year, so September, October time, around Christmas. We're expecting to see GTA 6. We don't have a proper release date for it yet, but if it does release, I don't think anything's going to have a chance of winning Game of the Year outside of that. A lot of people are saying get Bunny out, but he's not very well. We can't have Bunny out.
Saying it?
Connor and Molly and Palraj. He's not doing very well at the moment. Friend from school. He's not doing very well, so we can't get him out, unfortunately.
He's next to us.
He is still there. Just hanging in. Right, shall we move on to the next topic, which is
Is in there yet?
yeah. Which is the one that is kind of our highlight topic of this week. Okay. The title of this stream is You Don't Own Anything Anymore.
Oh, that one. The one I sent you.
And this is that PlayStation is now allowing you to rent PlayStation hardware from them, but never actually own it.
That's just weird.
This topic annoyed me. So... you can now lease your PlayStation hardware from Sony directly for a monthly cost.
Why would you do that, though?
I also wanted this. So let's have a look at some of the pricing and we can discuss why you may want to do it. So let's take a look at a standard PlayStation console. Let's say the PS4... don't want digital, do we? Well, it looks like we can only have digital editions. There it is. So, £11.99 a month. From £11.99 a month, you can rent a PlayStation from Sony. Let's say you're renting it for a year. £17.99 a month times 12. You're looking at £215. Okay? To buy a new PlayStation 5 outright is around £450, £500.
I was going to say that's how much I spent on yours.
Yeah. So for a year, kind of makes sense, maybe. If you're using it for 2 years, £12.95 for 24 months. So £12.95 for 24 months. You're looking at $310. Still cheaper to rent it over a 2-year period than it is for buying it outright.
But does that include the games?
It doesn't include the games. Let's say let's say you're doing it over 36 months, so 3 years. Here's where things get a little bit tricky. $11.99 a month for 36 months. You've now officially spent more on your console than it would have been for you to just buy it outright. after the 3-year mark.
Then why would you do it? And even then, if you go over the 3 years, you're spending more and more and more and more and more, and you still don't
own it. This is my exact problem.
You don't own it. Why would you spend that much and more, well, the equal amount and more, for something that you don't even own?
Until this point.
If you're going to do it for a year, 2 years, fine, and then get rid of it because you don't like it, fine. But if you're going to continuously pay that amount every single year afterwards, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, how many years have you had yours? 4?
Yes, we released into
So that would be more than the actual thing cost.
Yeah, and
why?
It becomes
and you wouldn't own it.
Yeah.
Why would you do it?
Exactly.
It makes no sense.
So this is a thing, we've seen it for a while in software, right? Software as a service has been a thing for as long as I can remember, including games. So I've been subscribed to both PlayStation Plus and to Xbox Game Pass for a while.
That kind of thing makes sense. To a degree.
It makes sense, but it doesn't mean I like it. I preferred being able to physically own my content. A lot of these games aren't getting physical releases anymore. The only way I can play them is by renting them in a yearly subscription.
But that's not, your choice. You can't help that. If the games aren't being released as a physical copy,
sure,
you're not going to be able to play it. But a PlayStation, you can buy a physical copy of it.
You can buy the actual
PlayStation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So this...
Instead of renting it.
Yeah. Now...
Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting money afterwards.
I suppose other reasons to potentially look at this is if you've got bad credit. If you've got bad credit and you can't physically afford to buy one up front, or you can't get the credit for a monthly payment to actually own the thing, I guess this might make sense. It's a fairly cheap option to get a PlayStation, but you never actually own it. But then
here's the thing:
spend within your limits.
Save up. Just put money aside every month and save up for the thing.
Yeah, spend within your limits is the issue here. And I think what Sony are hoping is going to happen is that people are going to get caught in this trap. People are 100%. Going to keep wanting to pay monthly to keep the hardware. I mean, I've already spent 300 odd quid on 2 years for this thing. I may as well just keep paying monthly because I don't want to spend another 300 quid to own the thing afterwards. You can upgrade it though. So after the 3 years, you have a choice. You have 3 choices: keep paying the monthly fee, and keep the hardware with you. You can return it and just cancel outright, or you can upgrade. So you can send your console back and get the biggest and best one. So if a new one has come out since, you can have that new one for the price.
What happens if a new one doesn't come out?
Then you can choose to upgrade. You can choose to
you can't upgrade
keep paying. Oh, you could. You could.
You can't upgrade it if there's not a new thing to upgrade it to.
What you could have been paying for the slim console for 2 years up until that point, and then you decide actually I want the PS4, the PS5 Pro. So you trade in your PS5
But if you're at the highest
the
point and there isn't an upgrade because there isn't a new console, you cannot upgrade it.
No, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But other reasons this might make sense is for things like the wireless controllers, for controllers or the PSVR hardware. I could potentially see myself renting a controller for a couple of months. The controllers are expensive. Controllers are like, especially an Edge controller, you're looking at 150, 200 quid, right? Let's say for a couple of months, I've got a friend around and we want to play a game for a couple of months. I don't want to spend 200 quid on the new controller. I could spend £20.59 a month for 3 months and enjoy it for those 6 months, for those 3 months, and then just send it back.
But you've got 2 controllers.
But don't be so facetious.
You've got 2 controllers. Why would you need?
Don't be so facetious. If I didn't have 2 controllers and I needed a second controller, this might be an okay option to do so.
Here's another thought. Buy a second-hand one from CEX.
Yes, you can also do that, but the option is there. I'm trying to play devil's advocate with this one. I too think it is a stupid idea, and I do not like it because I already don't own the games that I buy.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just trying to show how stupid it is.
I know. I already don't like that. I don't own the games that I buy. I also, if I'm ending up not owning the hardware that I buy as well,
What's the point?
It doesn't sit right with me as an idea. What does the audience think? What do you guys think? Would you be willing to rent a PlayStation for a set amount of time, a year, 2 years, 3 years?
No.
Or do you just think that this is a trap? It's a trap.
Codswallop.
It's a trap. Absolutely. Right. Should we move on to Meta being evil people? Bad Meta, bad. You probably won't understand much of this one, but it's one that I wanted to talk about anyway because it affects...
I haven't understood most of this.
Yes,
what are you on about?
It affects what I do at work.
Okay.
And that is that Meta... so we use Unity at work, which is a games engine. Meta's Unity and Unreal OpenXR SDKs block other PC VR headsets.
Yeah.
OpenXR is a standard. It's in the name that it is an open standard that all virtual reality and AR, augmented reality headsets should follow.
Mm-hmm.
So you can build a piece of software once and it works across all of these different headsets.
Mm-hmm.
It's an open standard. Meta, their Unity and Unreal OpenXR plugin is blocking other headsets from being able to work. It is defeating the one purpose that OpenXR had, which is to be an open standard. It's absolutely ridiculous.
How does that work?
Meta gave some absolute bullcrap reason as to why they were doing it. Pretty much every headset and runtime except Apple Vision Pro and PSVR 2 supports OpenXR, sure. But companies like Meta and Pico still offer their own integrations for Unity and Unreal. These two vendors' specific engine integrations promise the best of both worlds, support for your OpenXR and other unique features not yet present in OpenXR. But in Meta's case, on PC, this promise isn't kept. Despite being described as OpenXR, on PC, Meta's Unity and Unreal engines currently only work for Quest, Link and Rift headsets, not any other PC VR headset. I don't understand why. I understand as an open standard why they can't support other headsets.
Probably so that no one uses the other headsets.
Yeah. They gave the reason that they think that they have very specific hardware requirements that other headsets cannot physically support. So they had a standard called Application Space Warp, which basically just did AI every other frame, so you could run it off. That they were adamant that other headsets would never be able to do it, which is why they blocked it. But it's Meta being bad because it's meant to be an open standard and it's not an open standard. Connor has said, I can see the idea behind it, like leasing a car. You otherwise wouldn't be able to afford in one payment. But it makes me wonder if it would be worth it to buy one on finance and pay the interest. this was my point with it too, Connor. This was back on the PlayStation talk.
Yeah, I figured.
If you can get credit and pay the interest on it, that makes more sense, because then at least at the end of it you own the thing and you can choose to sell it. If you decide after 3 years, you know what, I don't want this anymore, you can sell it on. Yeah, and reimburse some of that initial payment that you made.
Yeah.
Which you can't do when leasing it.
No.
But you're right, it makes it like leasing a car. That's a pretty standard practice.
Yeah.
But a £500, £600 console as opposed to a couple of grand car is a very, very different kettle of fish, I think. Yeah?
I wouldn't know because I don't have a car or a PlayStation.
No, this is true. So, what to do about Meta and what to do about the OpenXR standard, which is not such an open standard, it seems. There isn't much that we can do about it. This is not an accident. This concern was raised to Meta in early 2024 via official means in the Kronos group, which is the group that looks after OpenXR.
Mm-hmm.
Meta acknowledges purposely blocking other platforms from running OpenXR content at this time. This is not a technical limitation. Some runtimes, VDXR, have made great efforts to implement compatibility modes. There are countermeasures to unblock the content on any platform, but it's very expensive to investigate and implement. This is not a shortcoming of OpenXR. As proven with many applications using the OVR plugin, with countermeasures enabled, these applications can run on conforming OpenXR implementations. So that's my issue with this one, is that it's not that other hardware can't run it, it's that this is Meta just saying we don't want them to run it. If that's the case, don't adopt an open standard. If you're not willing to be open, then you shouldn't have adopted the open standard, full stop.
Done?
It's been a long day.
I can tell.
Angie.
Yeah, I can tell.
I'm sorry, okay? I'm tired, and that really upset me when I read the news earlier. Should we move on to our last topic?
Yeah.
And that is Apple is taking legal action against the UK government against the whole privacy row. So do you remember?
I'm not surprised.
Do you remember? Was it last week? A week before, maybe?
Last week.
We were talking about Apple taking away their advanced. What was it? Advanced privacy features or advanced security features, basically, and they just removed it from the UK because the government were insisting that they needed a backdoor. What happens is Apple has now decided that it wants to take legal action against the UK government. Why they removed the feature and then decided we're going to force legal action here, I don't know. I feel like it would have made sense to do it the other way around.
So why are they pressing legal action?
Apple is taking legal action to try to overturn on demands made by the UK government to view its customers' privacy data if required. The BBC understands that the US tech giant has appealed to the investigatory powers tribunal, an independent court with the powers to investigate claims against the Social Security Service. Basically, it believes that it shouldn't have had to have done that. Apple believes that it shouldn't have had to have done that, and that it shouldn't be forced to do that. So they're going to court. They can just
say no.
But that was the thing. Apparently they couldn't. Apparently the UK government was forcing their hand and requiring them to do this.
Okay, ban Apple products in the UK then.
No, no.
No, but they could.
Yes, but that would negatively affect everyone. That would negatively affect the government as well, because loads and loads of people run iPhones, loads of people run Macs, loads of people run Apple technologies. I really hope that Apple wins this. I really do. Because I think it was ridiculous that they pulled it in the first place.
Well, they shouldn't have been pressured by the UK government.
I don't think this was pressure. I think this was the UK government just saying, you have to do this.
That's pressure.
Under pressure. Yeah, okay, fine.
Exactly, it's a shush.
I hope they win it. I will be following this case very, very closely because I'm interested to see. I know you won't, but I'd be interested to see where it goes. The UK's orders.
To tell me.
And short letter that it was. Yeah.
I'll just wait for you to tell me what was going on.
The UK's government's stance on it was that it was a safety issue.
Yeah.
It was a safety and a security issue for children, particularly, which I don't really understand. Because why are you not also banning WhatsApp and Signal and other end-to-end encrypted messaging services? Because they do essentially the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do essentially the same thing. They end-to-end encrypt all the data that goes in and out of the service. Yeah. So, shall we wrap this slightly shorter episode than usual up? Because I will be honest, before this episode, I had a nap. I woke up from that nap, and you know when you've had a really good nap, you wake up and it takes you a couple of minutes to work out what day of the week it is.
That was Charlie the other day.
What's happened in life? Yeah, it took me a good minute of laying there going, I should probably get up. So I think bed is calling us both. But thank you all.
Charlie isn't.
No, I know. But thank you all for joining us this evening for yet another wonderful episode of Clue and Clueless. We actually managed to avoid any talk of AI this week. Did you notice that?
No.
Yeah, we did. There was no AI topics this week. Or robotics.
Whoa.
Hey, look. The last 7 episodes, we've had at least one like AI or robotics topic. We've managed to avoid that this week, so...
Other than you mentioning it now.
I'm giving myself a pat on the back still for that one. Anyway, guys, if you did enjoy this episode, then remember to get subscribed down below, comment, like, share this with your friends as well, because I don't know about you, Zoe, but I'm quite enjoying these discussions that we have.
I'm enjoying them, but I don't understand them.
No, but it's all just a bit of fun.
And by tomorrow, I'm going to forget this entire conversation. I hope you realise that.
Oh, I know full well you do. Anyway, guys, my name has been Robert, also known as Bite Size Clue.
I'm Zoe.
This has been Clue and Clueless, and we look forward to seeing you all next week. Catch you later.